In 2020, we experienced the start of the destabilization of the global economy. The COVID-19 pandemic created a halt of production of goods and services, a massive shift in the workforce, and the creation of trillions of dollars by the government to prevent financial markets from failing. The result, a rapid increase of inflation and a very real threat of an economic recession. What is interesting is that in times of high inflation, there are always people who are affected by it and others who benefit from it. So in this video, we're going over 5 major ways wealthy people use inflation to make money. And by the way, this is not financial advice. This video is meant for entertainment purposes only. As we discussed in our previous video about inflation, one of the major reasons for inflation is the money supply in the economy. When the supply of money increases, it leads to more demand for products and services. More demand leads to an increase in prices. In other words, inflation. This is one of the reasons why wealthy people like to invest in Number 1. Real estate. Let's use an oversimplified and hypothetical example to illustrate how real estate can be beneficial in times of inflation. Imagine a small island with a closed economic system. This island only has $100 in their entire economy and their only industry is real estate, but there's only 10 houses on the island. If distributed evenly, each of these houses would be worth $10 each. But let's say that the government decides to print an additional $100 to put in the economy. Now we have $200 in the economy, but still only 10 houses. Now each house is worth $20. By increasing the money supply in the economy, 2 main things happened. If you held cash, the value of your money went down by 50%. Before, if you had $10, you could buy 1 house. Now, you can only buy half of a house. But if you owned a house, the value of your property doubled. You spent $10 to buy a house, now you can sell your house for $20. Now, this is an oversimplification of the way things work, but something similar happened in the US lately. Throughout 2020, the Fed created trillions of dollars as their stimulus package to add into the economy. The goal was to prevent the financial markets from crashing too badly. This wouldn't be much of a problem if it wasn't for labor shortages and supply chain issues created by the pandemic that held back the production of new homes. This meant that demand for new homes went up, but supply couldn't keep up. So prices grew at a much faster rate than expected, and so did homeowners' net worth. Now, the increasing value of properties is only part of why real estate is a great tool to take advantage of inflation. Cash flowing assets like real estate benefit from inflation because in an inflationary economy, rent prices also go up. As a landlord, you can buy a property using debt at a fixed interest rate. This means that your monthly payment will be the same every month. Yet, you're able to raise rent prices to keep up with inflation, allowing you to use inflation to essentially increase your income. Which leads us to our next point. Number 2. Debt. For most people, debt isn't really a good thing, but during times of high inflation, debt can actually be beneficial. You see, inflation means that $1 today is worth more than the same dollar tomorrow. Therefore, borrowing money allows you to buy more today than the same money will buy you later. This also means that inflation lets the borrower pay the lender back later with money that is worth a little less than it was before. For the average person, debt is only beneficial if 1. They have a fixed interest rate, meaning the interest rate does not change over time. 2. They had this debt before high inflation happened. And 3. Their salaries keep up with inflation. If their salaries grow on par with inflation, then this means that they make more money, so their debt payments take a smaller piece of their monthly income. In other words, if these conditions are in place, the relative value of their debt shrinks. But for the rich, debt makes them even richer in times of inflation. If debt is used in a productive way, like to expand a business or buy appreciating or cash-flowing assets, inflation increases their wealth. As we saw before, inflation shrinks the value of debt, but their business or their assets grow in value because they use the debt in the first place, making this gap in value between shrinking debt and growing assets extra wealth that was created by inflation. Number 3. Real assets. Many wealthy people have what are called real assets in their portfolio. Real assets is just a word for commodities like oil, gas, and raw materials. For example, in Ray Dalio's all-weather portfolio, which helps investors keep their money safer and profitable in all economic weathers, holds 7.5% of their entire portfolio in commodities as a protection or hedge against inflation. The reason why commodities are considered a great hedge against inflation is because these real assets are needed to run the economy. For example, oil is an important part of every economy because it allows for the creation and transportation of products. As demand goes up in an inflationary economy, so does the price of oil, making it a pretty good hedge against inflation. In 2020, the price of oil was around $40 per barrel. In mid-2022, the price hit an all-time high of $120 per barrel, tripling its value in just 2 years. Number 4. Stocks. Since inflation has to do with high supply of money in the economy, stocks tend to also go up in value. When there's a lot of money in the economy, there's also more demand for these financial assets. Now, this can create a bit of a bubble in the stock market, as we saw in the recent decline in the stock markets, especially as the Federal Reserve tries to reduce the flow of money in the economy. But not all stocks are created equal. Having an understanding of the underlying business behind a stock can help with choosing great inflation-resistant companies. For example, in times of high inflation, companies in the consumer sector that are easily able to pass down the cost of inflation down to customers typically do better in times of high inflation. Now, when supply chain issues are the problem, capital-light companies like software, communication, and technology companies tend to be less affected. A software company will be less affected by a truck driver shortage than a retail store will, because software companies don't depend on transportation of goods. Understanding what's causing inflation and choosing your companies carefully can help reduce the risk and even profit from high inflation. Now, if you haven't already, check out our video on inflation in the upper right-hand corner or at the end of this video so you can understand the different types of inflation and what causes them. Number 5. Gold. For centuries, gold has been the store of monetary value. In the US, gold was the foundation of the economy, and each dollar had an equivalent gold value, up until 1971. That is when the US government detached the value of the dollar from gold, which eventually led to the start of inflation. The combination of inflation and the fact that there's a finite amount of gold in the world led to this precious metal to be generally inversely related to the value of the US dollar. This means that in times of deflation, when the dollar goes up in value, gold tends to go down in value. And in times of inflation, when the dollar loses value, gold tends to go up in value. As a result, gold is often seen as a hedge against inflation. As inflation goes up, so does the price of gold. Many wealthy investors have a portion of gold in their investment portfolios. For example, Ray Dalio's all-weather portfolio holds around 7.5% of their money in gold to create stability in times of high inflation. So in summary, the 6 assets to beat inflation are: Number 1. Rental real estate. Number 2. Debt, under certain conditions. Number 3. Real assets, aka commodities. Number 4. Stocks in certain industries. And number 5. Gold. In the comments below, let me know what are some of the things that you are doing to navigate inflation. And if you want to check out our video breaking down how inflation works and how it affects your pocket, check out the video on the right. And if you want to learn more about Ray Dalio's all-weather portfolio that I referenced in this video, make sure to watch the video on the left. And I will see you in the next video.